Protect 2020 Cybervision, your view on cybersecurity with Richard Stiennon and Andy Crocker. Hi, welcome to Protect 2020's Cybervision, your view into cybersecurity. I'm Andy Crocker.
And I'm Richard Stiennon.
Hi, Richard. Good to see you.
Always good to see you.
We're sat in one room, but we're not. We're the other side of the Atlantic, each of us. So I'm in the UK, and Richard, who is just there, is in the USA. So modern technology. Okay, so our thing is that we want to try and discuss, the topics around cybersecurity and put out in layman's terms, mainly what's happening in the world. Richard, I think we're starting this at probably one of the most exciting times. And I say that with gritted teeth because I don't want to sound as if it's really exciting and good. It's exciting because it's bad with the war raging by Russia against the Ukraine. But it's very interesting to watch the cyber warfare that's going on around this campaign. What have you seen so far, Richard?
Yeah, and first of all, it's very interesting that, realistically, whatever cyber effects are being caused by attackers, they just pale in comparison to bombs falling on cities in Ukraine, right? It feels like it's not as important. And yet cyber effects during times of war can be very effective, in a campaign to cause panic, to cause dissatisfaction. If Ukrainian hackers, for instance, make life more difficult for Russian citizens, that's a perfectly effective strategy for trying to get Russia to stop what they're doing, and vice versa. Russia obviously is running an information campaign, a disinformation campaign, and if they have successful attacks on infrastructure in Ukraine, that would help their effort too. But it's almost a sideshow. And in particular, a lot of cyber prognosticators assumed that any incursion into Ukraine from Russia would be preceded by attacks on the infrastructure in Ukraine because they've done it before, right? They've taken down the entire power grid, well, a third of the power grid in Ukraine a couple times before.
Yeah.
They've launched fairly sophisticated malware called NotPetya that spread all the way through Ukraine and then leaked out to the rest of the world and caused the most damaging cyber attack in history in terms of dollars lost. Mm-hmm. They've done all that, and yet that didn't happen this time. They just went ahead with the kinetic attack, as the wonks like to call it. But here we are. There is a lot of cyber activity going on, right, on both sides. Ukraine has, put out a call to recruit a cyber force. It sounds similar to what Estonia's had for years now after the attacks against them when was that? 2007.
I know a bit about the Estonian attacks because I was, as you know, in Russia and was very interested in the DDoS attacks that were going on, etc., and the botnets that were being used, which were in St. Petersburg at the time. So I knew quite a bit about that. It's quite interesting to see the similarities between that. Not only the attacks that are going on against the Ukraine at the moment, but not only the attacks against Estonia, but also the attacks against Georgia. When the kinetic attack happened against Georgia, just prior to it, there was similar DDoS attacks going on, and I'll speak a little bit more about that in a minute. But what I find really interesting when you were saying it does pale into insignificance when you think of cluster bombs being used, these horrible weapons and missiles, cruise missiles being used, etc. And it's absolutely horrible. The human suffering that's going is terrible. But one of the big things in war is propaganda. Now, Putin himself is a master at propaganda, which is why his people are not necessarily completely in uproar at the moment against him. And if you can take out the opposition's ability to communicate to the masses, i.e. to give them your propaganda, if you like, or to tell them, look, we're doing as much as we can, you disenfranchise the people, and therefore they get worried, and it starts causing panic, spreading panic throughout the country. So it's really interesting what is going on at the moment. the Ukraine attacks, and I was saying about the Georgia attacks are very similar. With the Georgia attacks, you saw in Russia beforehand there was websites put up which was linked through hacker.ru, which, as you know, is a very famous hacking website and hacking magazine that you get off every magazine stall throughout Russia, which always amazed me. And on that, we saw links to this Stop Georgia website, which was really interesting. And on that Stop Georgia, it had you remember the ionic cannons, which were being used for DDoS attacks. It was giving them out, and it was giving lists of targets. Now, we've got similar sort of things going on in Russia right now. You know, these are good things to attack, etc. Yeah, and of course, the thing about it state-sponsored, as opposed to being done by the state, is not necessarily people in the military doing it. It is people encouraging the hackers within the country to do it, and it's the state that's encouraging them. And we can see that quite clearly. We saw it with Georgia. There's a brilliant report. I think it was Snow Goose or something like that. I'd have to look that up. It was a brilliant report about the attack against Georgia. But American, I can't remember the guy's name. I should really have quoted it on you, but maybe I'll put it in the links afterwards. Yeah, if I can find it. It was really, really good report, and it showed all the thing about Stop Georgia and who was running it and where it was located, just outside GRU headquarters, the aquarium in Moscow, which was really quite interesting. It was there. So it's really good. So we've seen this before. We know that these type of cyber attacks happen around a war. But what about the malware that's come out from it? What have you spotted so far?
Yeah, we have various groups inside Russia, particularly that are, we call them cyber criminal gangs, right? So they're basically businesses that engage in cybercrime. And years ago they would have been carding, right? They would have been spreading malware in order to steal credit cards from your phone or something. But in recent years, it's been all about ransomware. And a couple of those groups are Evil or Revil and Conti, massive groups that both, so the Russian police actually supposedly arrested most of the members of Revil and televised it. And then the NSA has been targeting Conti to take down their botnets. So botnets are created by malware. But now, just at the outbreak of the conflict about a week before, there was a new wiper that started to get distributed, targeting Ukrainian computers, and in particular computers in Ukrainian organizations. And it brings to mind what NotPetya did, though NotPetya was a worm. This is thankfully a more targeted attack that doesn't spread to the entire world at once. But basically, it overwrites the master boot records.
This is Whispergate.
Windows machines. Whispergate, yeah.
Yeah. It's quite an amazing bit of software in what it does.
Yep.
As you said, it attacks the master boot record, but pretends, like NotPetya, pretends to be ransomware.
Right.
How does it do that?
Yeah, so as just, leaves a message in the master boot record with instructions on how to pay the ransom. Yeah. But there's no way to pay the ransom because that's not what they're there for. Well, quite often.
Why ransom? You can't unencrypt it because it's not encrypted.
That's right.
Deleted.
Yeah, your computer's been destroyed. Yeah. The interesting thing is that quite often when you see computer destruction, as happened at Saudi Aramco, right? Saudi Aramco is the biggest wiper attack ever. It took out, 30,000 computers at Saudi Aramco, and this is years ago. But there's always a suspicion that they were covering their tracks, right? They had used some hacking techniques and logs were kept of the hack, and they want to cover their tracks, so they just wipe all the disks, which is, kind of an extension of what hackers used to do, which is go and edit the logs to remove the evidence of what they've done. Now they just, what the heck, let's just wipe the whole computer.
Yeah, I remember those days, trying to find the logs that have been wiped.
Yep.
But I want to stick with, at the moment, talking about this because you just brought it up now, and you're in what you were saying just then, and that's the group Conti, right? I've been watching with interest because they came out first of all and said that they supported Putin's actions, the war against Ukraine. So then a Ukrainian hacker, originally it was reported that he was a former or he or she was a former member of Conti, but now it's saying no, it wasn't. It's a good guy, white hat guy, who's a researcher, and he's gone in and he's hacked Conti and
in Ukraine,
in
right?
Ukraine, yeah.
Yep.
So he's in Ukraine and he's hacked.
Yep.
And he's got all their chat logs, their Jabber chat logs and everything like that. And he's got some of the software they've been using, the ransomware they've been using. And what I find really interesting for us, it's really interesting because, you know, we with companies who get ransomware, we help them. One of the what's really interesting is the conversations between them. I haven't read them all yet because I found out that my Russian reading age is about 5. Because as you know, I speak a little bit of Russian, not a huge amount, and I understand the alphabet, etc., Cyrillic alphabet. But I noticed to myself that what I'm having to do is read the letters out loud in my head, but and I'm spelling it out like you would do when you're a 5-year-old, then working out what the word is saying, all them letters saying, and then translating it into English. And I realized that my reading age in Russian is about 5, so it's taken me a long time to get through it. I know that there's been an English translation of some of it, and I'm going to actually move on over to that.
Thankfully, for me anyways, because I'm not going to read those chat logs. You can imagine if you've ever read any chat logs, they're like just a bunch of banter, and it just goes on forever. We're all guilty of that when we engage in chat on any platform that we're on. But luckily Brian Krebs has read all the chat logs.
I know, I've read his
and he's summarizing it, so definitely go check out Brian Krebs.
I have Brian Krebs, and for those who haven't seen it, we'll put a link in the description of this as well. Brian Krebs, Krebs on Security. It's a great blog. He wins Blogger of the Year just about every year when you go to the RSA conferences. He's really good, and the stuff that he writes is fantastic. He's had a lot of problems with Russians and a lot of problems with Russian gangs and etc. And I like Brian. I think he's a great guy. But going back to Conti, when you think we took down a Russian group back in 2003, 2004 when I was in Russia, and 5 or 6 people, and it spread. People on the wings were maybe 10 people, but the main core were 3 hackers, and Conti had over 100 people working for them on their payroll, working as if it was a business, and I can't remember the website that there used to be up now. It was the one that was based in the mafia style thing. What was the Carter Planet or something like that? One of those. And I always thought then, and whenever I used to discuss it and do presentations on these groups, I always used to say that these guys, if they actually put their minds to legitimate business, they would be millionaires, absolute multimillionaires, because they have this great business head, they have this great, cybersecurity head. They've just decided to go onto the dark side as opposed to the light side, and are making illegal money. But you have to live your life within.
Evidently, $2.2 billion.
Yeah.
So
I don't know how true those figures are, but I know that there's been rumors about it making more money than drugs, but I can't see that myself. I don't think those are false figures, but anyway. But I've been looking at some of the members of the group. I won't go through all of them. But what I find very interesting as well. Sorry, and I shouldn't keep jumping about like this, but R-Evil or Revil, whichever one you call it, was allegedly all arrested by the Russian police. Right now, I know the Russian police. I know I knew the investigative committee and the high-tech crime department. I worked with them for a few years, and they're great guys. But this wasn't. I think this was Department K that was taking him out, and they arrested all the R-Evil people. Why was R-Evil arrested and not Conti? Now, I have a theory about this, and that is R-Evil wouldn't work for the government, wouldn't do things for the government, and Conti would. Well, what's your opinion?
I kind of suspect it was just for show, and R-Evil is working for the government now. for sure.
Now, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Once
Yeah.
they've been arrested, nobody's going to say no to that. Once you've been arrested, I think the Conti said yes before they got arrested, and our evil said no, got arrested, and then said yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's, but they're two very our evil and Conti. For those that don't know and those that are listening, two very very big ransomware groups. They both specialize in ransomware. They both send out the ransomware. They both hack companies. They get the ransomware in, and they're making money by blackmailing people, ransoming their goods to them. Quite astonishing the way it's going on.
And they've got affiliate networks, which is actually the birth of Russian cybercrime was the Russian business group back in the early 2000s. Russian Business Network, right?
Yeah.
Right. And they were engaged in, click fraud and simple stuff like that. But then they all of a sudden they created a iframes tool that they started to sell, kind of a managed hacking service. And then soon after that, they kind of dissolved and disappeared, but the cybercrime kept going. So I suspect that's kind of the father, godfather of.
You're spot on, Richard. They used to advertise. I went up to St. Petersburg. I was involved in looking into it, etc. And they had botnets for hire, but then they had complete packages. Complete phishing packages. You just clicked, and it was by the dollar for how many you said, and it was a very very business organized system. It was very very commercial. And they made a lot of money and allegedly disappeared. I don't think they did. They just moved on to bigger and better things. Yep. And this is what we get from it. Is the Conti groups are very very organized, very businesslike.
Yep. So, Andy, I think we should continue this discussion in our next episode. And of course, every single day, this is March 3rd, the 7th day of the war in Ukraine. Every single day has got new developments.
Okay, Richard, look, we've done it. Listen, if you've enjoyed watching this, don't forget, hit the subscribe button. It's going to be around here somewhere. Hit the subscribe button and also give us a thumbs up so that we know that you're out there watching and you're enjoying it. Thanks very much. Bye for now, Richard.
See you, Andy.
Bye.